Hello and welcome to another coaching conversation. And today I have Ian Jerfferis with me. Did I pronounce that correctly, Ian?
You did indeed, Dawn.
Good. Thank you. So we're going to dive straight in because we've got lots of questions. It's a pleasure to spend time with you as always. But I want to hear, as I'm sure our listeners do, what was your journey from being in the Royal Navy to where you are now, heading up the UK and Ireland's coaching company?
It's a long story because I am that age. It really started because 25 years in the Royal Navy taught me a lot about communication and communicating particularly with my team.
Yeah.
And in my case, it was a team of maintainers looking after my helicopter. And of course, if you look after your team, they look after your helicopter, and therefore they look after your life. So it was very important to manage, to communicate, and to get things right and to look after them. In 2000, I then left the Navy and I went into retail business and bought a small printing business where a couple of years later I met Gerard O'Donovan, who walked into my shop, opening a packet of business cards and mentioning that the business cards weren't good. That frightened me because we hadn't printed them. But since then, we then printed all of the Noble Manhattan training information and a lot of other things beside. So that's how I met Gerard in 2003. We kept in touch mainly because we lived both in Weymouth and also our offices were alongside each other. And then it came to pass about 3 years ago that there was an opening for the master distributor for the UK and Ireland to provide Noble Manhattan courses, which I'd seen a lot of, but not really delved into. And I took the opportunity, and here I am today.
So through doing all the printing for Noble Manhattan, you probably already felt that you knew the industry and the student material quite well by then, I should imagine.
You would have thought so, but it wasn't until a recent residential, when I did the whole of the residential course, that I realized quite how little I knew about coaching and about what was actually in the manuals. And I'm very, very glad that I took the liberty of attending the course because I learned a tremendous amount, not only about coaching, but about myself. Yeah. And then I decided that actually this is the way I go.
Yeah. So what was the catalyst, or what was the key moment for you that thought you're on the right path, having been in the forces, which is obviously a very different lifestyle, to now being an entrepreneur running the UK office? What was the catalyst for you that, yeah, you've found your niche?
I've always had an affinity for helping other people, and I derive a tremendous amount of satisfaction when I see that somebody has sorted themselves out, looked ahead, and provided a good goal and route for the rest of their lives, perhaps. And if I've been part of that, then it really makes me feel that that I've done something okay. And so really, it was always there, but it wasn't until I was on the course when I thought, I've got no bits that people can coach me on, and suddenly found that yes, I had, because they delved a little bit, but also I thoroughly enjoyed acting the coach and becoming, in my eyes, I identified that I do have what it takes, and I have every intention of completing the course and going for it.
So what were some of the things that you had to put in place to make that transition from print shop owner to office manager, entrepreneur of quite a large organization?
In a way, very little, because it's about dealing with a team. It's about dealing with customers. The sales bit never comes easy, but it's the opportunity to work with them, alongside them during their course, and to really enjoy their achievements, which is all due to them. I just answer a couple of questions occasionally, and that's what I really enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, the sales side never comes easy. I think there are very few people who would say, you know, I'm a die-hard salesperson. I love it. And I know from talking to coaches and students and mentors and therapists and practitioners of all sorts of areas and disciplines, that's the side they really struggle with. So how do you motivate your team to grow the business? What are some of the key things that you would say would motivate staff?
It's the ability to look after them and to have a rapport with them. And if they have certain issues, they need certain time off to do something. After all, they've got their own lives to lead. And it's important to acknowledge that and to allow them the flexibility of leading their own lives. And I suppose if there is one phrase that really sticks in my mind, is that if you're going to delegate responsibility, you must delegate authority with it. And I trust my team, therefore they react accordingly, and they, if they need to take time off, they take time off, but they will do the work in another time.
Yeah.
With very little input from me.
Yeah, I think you're right. Flexibility and treating people as you want to be treated yourself is a very important managerial stroke leadership characteristic, isn't it? If you're going to grow people around you.
Well, I like to think so. It allows for a happy workplace, and if you've got a happy workplace, then you're going to engage your staff far better. Yeah, there's diplomacy required, but as always in any team, there's a little bit of politics, a little bit of diplomacy. But by careful work and leadership, then and really through communication, which of course is getting faster and faster these days, that you can really motivate your team and bring them with you.
Now, we've met Gerard I think he was one of the first people who did the coaching conversations with us, and we know about his big, hairy, audacious goal to touch 1 million people's lives all over the world. How are you helping do your part? Because he said it really cascaded down and it was his teams that were doing it. Now he's more virtual, but how are you making your mark, do you think, having transitioned from managing the print shop to being part of Gerard's legacy and running this coaching business?
Well, I'm building up the UK side of the market, and I'm getting the message out there. And I think one of the most important areas that we're just about to launch is bringing a school coach training course together, which starts in May 2018. And this, I think, is very, very important, because the students these days a lot of them are struggling. They're struggling with life, they're struggling with stress, they're struggling with a number of factors which really weren't around when I was a student. And I think, again, because communication is so instantaneous these days. So by developing a coaching culture in schools, then we can really help not only students, but we can help teachers, we can help parents, and we can then provide for the next generation so they are more prepared to cope with life and to cope eventually with running their own work lives as well.
So you're getting them while they're young.
I think it's the way to go. I know it's the way to go.
Yeah. Saves them years of therapy later on as well.
Well, there is that, and by identifying situations which might become mental health issues, such issues can be headed off at the pass, at least diminished, and that can only be a good thing.
I mean, you said earlier when you were in the Royal Navy that, you know, having the good communication with the team saved lives, but actually it's similar in the coaching world as well, because we're working with people's minds and we're saving lives and helping people live better quality lives by helping them to unblock and deal with issues that would otherwise sabotage them living the life they deserve and desire, aren't we?
Indeed we are, and the sooner that people can realise that it's a tremendous value coaching can be, without necessarily a stigma of counselling. And after all, counselling is required in a number of areas, but coaching can help. Coaching can be there some people will react better to coaching than to other things. And one of my students recently said to me that she can achieve more in 5 sessions of coaching than in 8 sessions of counselling. And that comes from somebody who knows about coaching and is a counsellor.
Yeah. Ah, that's interesting. I mean, it reminds me of one of the things that really hit home when I was a student coach, was that this is very powerful and it's results orientated. We're not working on the past necessarily. It's from where you are now and where you want to be. That's, I think, the key difference, isn't it, between the counselling and the coaching. The coaching is very forward thinking, and that's why people are empowered to make some progress.
Indeed, the best place to start is today, because you can't change yesterday, but you can change tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that is the important aspect, and it's a very positive outlook to be able to think, well, I can change the way that that life goes forward. I can't do anything about the past. I can learn from it, but I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But I can change what my future could be and develop it into what I want my future to be.
Yeah, quite right. That's well worth remembering. Now, you've been very successful, Ian. You've had 3, this is your 3rd career almost in the coaching world. If you were to reflect back, what would be the piece of advice? Because obviously we know a lot of people aspire to be entrepreneurs, and you've done it. So what would be the piece of advice that you wish you had known now, or back then rather, that you know now, and who gave it to you, and what was it?
I've got to think about that one.
Yeah.
That's the punchy question.
Yeah.
Be yourself, I think. It's all very well fitting into somebody else's box, or a box that has been designed for a number of people. But each and every person is unique. And each and every person has their different values, has their different beliefs. And that is really important. And through that uniqueness, you can enjoy life. If you enjoy life, then you are good at doing what you want to do, rather than doing what other people want you to do. Sure, there's a requirement these days to make money, to pay taxes, but it can be done in a way that if you think about how you're going to plan your life, and of course plans can always change, but if you think about how you're going to plan your life, then it's really going to be a really good life.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that sounds like you've just summed up your definition of success, really.
Perhaps I have.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. So how do you spend your me time? Because, you know, you're a very busy chap. You've had several businesses. You work a lot. You're learning about a new industry you're embracing. How do you relax?
Do I relax?
Oh, well, yes. I'm making the assumption you do.
I think we all relax in different ways. To me, a change is as good as a rest. I'm one of these people that if I'm not busy, then something's wrong. And if I put my feet up, I can feel guilty about that, because I'm sure there's something else to do. What I have found is that holidays are very beneficial, and holidays away from home, where there's always something to do, whether it be the gardening, the ironing, or what have you, and yes, I do the ironing, is to get away from your entire normal life.
Yeah.
And that way you can relax, you can read, you don't feel guilty about not putting up pictures or cutting the grass, because you can't, you're not there to do it.
So if you were getting away and you were on a desert island for your holiday, and you mentioned reading, what would be the best book if you could only take one with you? What would it be, Ian?
The book of all knowledge, the Bible.
The Bible. Okay.
There is so much in there.
Yeah.
And everybody has their own faith. some take it further and take it into church. It doesn't really matter which church. It's a faith.
Yeah.
Whether you study the Quran, whether you study the Bible, whether you study other books of religious learning, it really doesn't matter, provided that you can study and understand what people have written before.
Mm-hmm.
And in my life, what I have noticed is that perhaps one of the best coaches ever to exist was Jesus.
Okay.
He was the one who asked the questions.
Yeah.
And made people reflect on the answers.
Yeah.
I think that's a very valuable lesson. I think others have perhaps put words in his mouth as to providing answers as well, just to complete the parable, to complete the story. But very many of the parables are all can all be stopped at open questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very, very important.
Okay.
But that's my life. Other people have different ways.
Of course, yes, yes. So what would be a little known secret about you that our listeners and certainly the people at Noble Manhattan would be surprised to learn about you, Ian, I wonder?
Okay. I have two families. I have an older family and 5 grandchildren. I have a younger family, 2 children aged 12 and 10.
Okay.
Now, on the older ones, I was in the Navy, I was always away.
Yeah.
I understood that when somebody goes away from a family, one of the pillars is removed, but until you actually are there with the rest of the family, when the pillar is removed, you don't fully understand it. And in my second marriage, when my wife was away, I looked after the children, and my wife was in the Royal Navy as well. So I'm now qualified to answer that question on both sides of the coin. I've been the one who's gone away. I've also been the one who has brought up the children. Yeah. And it's not difficult.
Yeah.
What it is 24/7.
Yes. Yeah.
And there is no getting away with it.
Yeah.
That children take a part of your brain and utilize it. If it's actually watching them when they're babies, if it's looking after them when they're young, if it's running their lives and their taxi service when they're older, it's there all the time. It's there all the time.
I remember one of the Noble Manhattan students saying to me, who was in a similar situation with 2 families, and he would pick up his youngest daughter from his first marriage, and he said, I can't tell you how much coaching has improved my life, because before he used to pick her up from school and say, did you have a good day? Did you eat your lunch? Did you make friends? You know, all those sorts of things. They were all closed questions. And the child said yes, no, probably on an iPad or an iPhone or something, not looking at daddy. And he said, since I've done my coaching course, I'm saying, what did you have for lunch? How much homework have you got? Who did you make friends with? Which subject did you like best? And he said, she has just blossomed. Therefore, their relationship has blossomed. And he said, if I get nothing else out of this course, if I don't become an entrepreneur or a practitioner, you know, it has given me a whole new way of communicating and bridging that relationship with his other family, which has always stayed with me as probably one of the most successful stories I've ever heard.
Yes, I can understand that. Fortunately, I was never in such a situation myself.
Yes.
Because I was widowed rather than a marriage breakup.
Yeah.
But I can certainly see that, and I think that goes back to one of the first comments that we talked about, which was communication. Mm-hmm. And I think, in my view, communication is probably the single most important factor in anybody's lives these days. But it's how you communicate that is important. Not that you do, but how you do. Yeah. And I think that the more we can consider that and reflect, the more we can get it right. Yeah. And after all, communication is getting faster and faster. It is nigh on instantaneous now. And that is what causes a tremendous amount of stress in people's lives. Miscommunication can be very dangerous.
So where can people find out more about your residential and your coaching courses, to learn more about you, your trainers, and what they can expect from a Noble Manhattan course, Ian?
There are two sites. One is noble-manhattan.com, which is the headquarters site, and that gives a very good overview of the courses and what's going on and things like that. More locally, we have noblemanhattan.co.uk, and that is far more about what we're doing in the country. We've also got information there on the school coaching and also the doctorate course, which Noble Manhattan now runs in conjunction with Monarch Business School in Switzerland. And of course, through there, you can always contact me or my team, normally me, because I'll then get my team to resolve contacts and things like that. And we can then tell you more. It's all very well reading about these things, but actually it's very important, and certainly in my style, it's very important that we provide the courses that people want, rather than the courses that we want to provide the people. And everybody is different. It's knowing what they want to do, how they want to do it, to identify that our courses will suit. And occasionally our courses don't suit, and there's not much we can do about that, but it's only very, very rarely.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And again, that communication, the personal touch, and I know you submitted some of the questions to ask when a student is considering which is the right course or which is the right training provider for us. And we've created this free guide at the International Authority for Professional Coaching and Mentoring for the potential students to download. Because there is a wealth of courses out there, and I hope that the videos that we're putting out there puts faces to the names as well and makes it easier for the students to pick the right course for them. What would you say are some of the, say, 2 or 3 unique selling points about why somebody would benefit from your course as opposed to another course, Ian?
I think there are 2 unique, I mean, and many companies will tell you that they provide the best value course. I think, I know in our case it's true, but everybody's got their own views on the definition of value and things like that. Our courses require a certain amount of dedication because they are you have to have the discipline to be able to work for yourself, which most people, when they're focusing on a new career, will do. And we will help and encourage along the line. That way, you can start when you like and you can finish when you like within a couple of boundaries, and you can work at your own pace. So if life gets in the way of your work, then we can work around it. It's not insurmountable. But I think one of our main drivers is that by doing our diploma course, our practitioner coach diploma course, then it takes the student to the level of being able to get fast track accreditation, to be personally accredited as somebody who has done a certain amount of training, and quite a lot of training actually, who has gained a certain amount of experience and who is current. And I think accreditation is more and more important these days. After all, anybody can call themselves a coach, but that doesn't mean to say that they are a good coach or a successful coach, or that they have the full wherewithal to be trusted as a coach. And I think that's where accreditation comes.
I guess the same can be said for training providers. Anybody who's got a skill can suddenly set up a training school or give out a training course, but it's the fact that it's an accredited course, it's been validated and so on, that's what sets it apart. And I know all your courses are accredited, so there's plenty for potential students to choose from.
It's a case also of being externally accredited.
Yes.
And it's important that we in my eyes, it's very important that we are accredited by organisations who are set up effectively solely to do that, because they then have the mandate to be recognised as providing such a service of accreditation. Whether the course has been accepted by them, whether the individual has been accepted by them, and those two, while disparate, are both very important aspects.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I know that even though you're UK and Ireland based, you've still got an international feel. You've got mentors all over the world. You've got students all over the world. In fact, I met one of them on the beach in Marbella just this week, earlier in the week. And your residentials are all over the world, so it gives it that international flavour. So what's it like just having all these cultures to deal with?
Fascinating.
Yeah,
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
On the residential, there were, I met people from representing 10 different countries.
Wow.
Which is tremendous. Okay, some of them represented 2 countries. One lady was born and brought up in Brazil, but she now lives in Switzerland.
Okay.
So that's 2 countries.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's fascinating to meet the different cultures, to know how they're dealing with things. And of course, they've been brought up in totally different circumstances, particularly the Eastern European side of things.
Yeah.
And it's a delight. I was in Romania. It's a delight to see the how the others are getting on, and to learn from their backgrounds, from their thought processes and things. And it brings that additional dimension to the course to be able to meet and work with people like that. And a tremendous number of friendships have formed on these courses, and students just stay in touch and stay in touch and stay in touch.
I think that's another USP, actually, thinking about it, Ian, because that richness that people get from mixing with other people from all sorts of cultures in their study buddy groups and their residential just adds something extra that you don't get if you go to a course and you study just in one country.
It does indeed. I think because I've been brought up predominantly in the country and in the southwest of the United Kingdom, I tend to lose. I tend to lose the thought that actually we are a very multinational nation, and that's just in UK. And it always surprises me whenever I go up or through London, the number of different groups of people that are up there. And of course, they're all a lot of them are all in need of coaching and things like that. And to be able to work with them, to have that rapport with them, because my eyes have been open to meeting others from other countries, is tremendous.
Yeah, the world's definitely getting smaller, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Okay, well, we've come sadly very quickly to the end of our time together. Just one last question, I think. Let's think, what would be your favorite place to visit? I mean, obviously being in the Navy, you visited a lot, but where would you ideally like to hold the next residential, in your ideal place?
Oh dear, that's a difficult one, that one. Given that no holds barred and anybody can fly anywhere, there's a small island in the Caribbean called Nevis.
Okay.
And that, to me, it summed up everything. It's small. It's out of the way. There's not much you can do there, which is good.
Yeah.
You make your own entertainment, and to have a residential on such a small island would be lovely. There are cost implications, of course.
Yeah.
There are the time implications of getting people there, because they don't take direct flights, and certainly they don't take cheap flights either. You've got to get out to the Caribbean first and then get on an island hopper to get there. But it's just, in my remembrance, and of course things change, in my remembrance, it's just a delightfully relaxed island.
That sounds like a retreat more than a residential.
But if you retreat, you can have a wonderful residential then.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, Ian. It's been a pleasure getting to know more about you and specifically what goes on at Noble Manhattan in the UK. Everybody knows where they can find you, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the future.
Thank you very much, Dawn.
Thank you.
Thank you.